Welcome to The Cosmic Codex, exploring our science fiction universe, May 1st, 2025. Interview: Charles Tyra launches new science fiction magazine, Goblins and Galaxies. The Kickstarter is live now. Podcast article written by science fiction author Brian Scott Pauls. AI voiceover created using MicMonster.
Welcome, everyone, to what I hope will be the first of many interviews with the Cosmic Codex, where I would like to talk to people who work in the science fiction field and perhaps some readers as well. Our inaugural guest today is Charles Tyra, the publisher at Randolph Literary Press. They currently publish Cosmic Horror Monthly, and will soon be publishing a new magazine, Goblins and Galaxies. Charles, welcome.
Hey, Brian, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Sure, glad to have you. You, I believe, have described Cosmic Horror Monthly as a love letter to Weird Tales magazine, one of the original fantastical pulp magazines. To you, how do you define weird fiction? There may be some newer readers that aren't steeped in the pulps that don't really know what that means and how to differentiate other types of science fiction and fantasy from weird fiction.
Sure, that's a great question. With CHM, it did kind of start out as trying to pay tribute and homage to a magazine I loved growing up. And when it comes to weird fiction, you could probably ask 10 publishers or editors and they might all have a different answer. But for me, it's kind of like taking one of the subgenres like horror or science fiction or fantasy even, and then you have some kind of a something that's off with the world and it's specifically unexplained. We just like experience this distortion through the mind and the eyes of the main character.
Very good. The kind of, I guess you would say, triad of weird fiction authors, to me at least, seems to be the acronyms H.P. Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, and Robert E. Howard, all three of which wrote, in addition to fantasy and horror, a lot of their work could be classified as science fiction. Do you find that in weird fiction, there's more of a blending of genres that tend to be more distinct when they don't carry that label?
Yeah, I think that's a good observation. They can be blended in all different ways and as well as standing alone. And I think those three writers like had their own distinct style with doing that.
Yeah.
Honestly, how I would look at it is, Clark Ashton Smith took weird fiction in the direction of fantasy. Lovecraft, of course, in the direction of cosmic horror, and Robert E. Howard in the direction of sword and sorcery.
Right. What do you think? Clark Ashton Smith, for instance, has a small segment of his bibliography but not an insignificant section, is it's science fiction. But what do you think characterizes Clark Ashton Smith as a science fiction writer compared to, say, more modern writers, say writers that wrote in the golden age of science fiction, or writers that are writing today?
That's a really good question. And it's kind of hard to say. Like, that's a writer that I really enjoy, but I haven't read his entire works compared to like a Lovecraft. So how he differentiates in terms of science fiction, I think, is maybe hard to say.
You could say, why don't you take the same question with Lovecraft, for instance? So I would say more of Lovecraft's writing can be characterized in some way as science fiction than Clark Ashton Smith. So what makes a Lovecraft science fiction story different from an Isaac Asimov science fiction story?
Yeah, that's all right. That's I think I could probably approach that question a little better. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, I think the real difference there is, the science fiction's not really at the forefront. It's definitely there. You have like characters that are scientists and that are trying to discover things, and rather than being enlightened, like I would say a lot of characters find in Asimov stories, they find something and they're horrified and their life's changed forever in a bad way with
Yeah,
Lovecraft.
yeah. Do you have a favorite weird fiction, science fiction story?
Yeah. So that, it's going to kind of depend. That's hard to answer, like on maybe what era we're talking about. One of my favorites that combines weird fiction and science fiction is The Diamond Lens by James O'Brien. That's a
Yeah,
super old one.
but it's very good.
Yeah,
I've read it, and it's amazing how James Gunn put it in his one of his collections on the road to science fiction. He called it perhaps like a good candidate for the first modern science fiction story.
yeah,
And it's the way it's written. It was written like in the 1860s, I think, pre-Civil War, maybe even.
yeah, right around that time.
That's a great pick.
Unfortunately, we didn't get more writing from him because of the Civil War.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's too bad. And there are a lot of science fiction writers where we would have enjoyed a lot more from them, but life, got cut short or
For sure.
just got in the way. So tell me about Goblins and Galaxies. So you already have one magazine, a successful magazine, Cosmic Horror Monthly. And
Thank you.
my understanding is you decided to start Goblins and Galaxies, and it's going to combine about three different subgenres. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So it's kind of going back to my same love for the older pulp magazines. I feel like Weird Tales was really foundational for cosmic horror and sword and sorcery. About 100 years ago, and so this is kind of like me doing the same thing, like applying the same treatment we did with CHM to this other genre that I really love, and but then also asking to take the that pretty niche subgenre in new directions, and hopefully we can see it combined with dark fantasy, and also see sword and sorcery combined with science fiction. I feel like there are some rules with sword and sorcery, but I think the setting, while awesome when it's in like a high fantasy medieval setting, like I don't think that should be a hard rule there.
Well, the 1970s was kind of a heyday of sword and sorcery, but a lot of the writers in the 70s that were in 60s and 70s, and I'm thinking here in particular of Michael Moorcock,
Yeah,
they had no compunction about combining science and magic in a sword and sorcery tale, and it gives those stories a feel, a vibe that you don't get from a lot of
right,
modern fantasy.
right, exactly.
Um, if Cosmic Horror Monthly is sort of reminiscent of Weird Tales, do you see Goblins and Galaxies as something more in the same vein as like the magazine of fantasy and science fiction?
Yeah, I definitely hope to draw some inspiration there, and a lot of the things that they did. Yeah.
So what kind of stories are you hoping to get when you start taking? So are you already taking submissions? Sorry, I didn't.
No, that's okay. The Kickstarter is still going for another week. We'll get to that. But after that, on May 7th, we'll open for submissions for the first time.
Okay. And I saw you on another interview where you said, I think the way you put it was perhaps surprisingly, because this is not always the case with editors, you enjoy reading the slush pile. Do you read everything that gets submitted for one of your magazines?
So early on, I definitely did read everything, but as time wore on and the responsibilities increased, I wasn't able to continue doing that. I still read as much as possible. That's one of the things with this that I haven't grown tired of. Like reading new stuff is just so exciting to me. So I don't read every manuscript, but I try to read as much as possible. Usually, I try to get in like half of the pile.
What kind of range do you see just in terms of like writing ability for people that submit to a magazine?
That's a good question. I think that it changes. There's ebbs and flows with each open call. At this point, I'm taking submissions, 4 times a year, and our last couple of open calls, the writing was really strong.
That's
Just
awesome.
kind of across the board.
Yeah, I feel like there's, with platforms like Wattpad, for instance, I feel like there's a real desire out there for people to write and be able to send it somewhere,
Yeah.
and get somebody to look at it. And so that's encouraging that people are sending into your magazines. Um, Well-known science fiction editor John W. Campbell Jr.
Yep.
Was rather famous for, if he saw a story that he knew he wasn't going to accept, but he thought he saw a spark of promise in the writer, he would write them back. Sometimes voluminous feedback on like, hey, basically like, here's all the things that are wrong with your story, but you should
Yeah.
fix these on your next story. Do you do anything like that?
Um, we do try to respond to everyone we can. Unfortunately, we're just not able to respond to all of the manuscripts that come in.
Sure.
But kind of like you're talking about, if we have a story that it's solid, it's promising, it was like enjoying to read, but it's not quite there, because I mean we're talking about having maybe 35 spots
Yeah.
out of a slush pile that's got 700 manuscripts in it.
Right.
So there's a lot of great stories that maybe don't make it. We try to respond to those as well as we can.
I would think that a lot of new writers in particular would find it encouraging just to know that you do some of that, because I think that sometimes it can be demoralizing when you're sending your manuscript, even though you no longer have to like type it out, put it in an envelope, send it off. But even when you log in
Yeah.
portal and upload it, it's kind of like, am I ever going to hear anything other than, hey, no thanks? So
Right.
it's I'm sure that there are some people who will watch this who will probably take some encouragement from that. That, yeah, I can't respond to everything, but there's a better than zero chance that they'll respond. So you mentioned a Kickstarter. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it? And did you learn anything from your launch of Cosmic Horror Monthly that informed what you did with the launch of Goblins and Galaxies?
Oh, endless lessons. I've been doing Cosmic Horror Monthly for about 5 years, and I just kind of jumped into that project, not knowing a whole lot about the specific processes and what all goes into it. And so I've kind of built what I do as I go. And whenever we learn about something that works, okay, well now that's the thing that we do. So there's a lot of things that like I won't have to learn those lessons a second time. And so I'm kind of
Sure.
excited about hitting the ground running with this magazine.
Very good. Do you is Cosmic Horror Monthly, does it run advertising in addition to selling subscriptions?
So I kind of decided early on that like the magazine, the subscription magazine that you receive as a paying reader will not have advertisements in it.
Okay.
We do offer a free version of the magazine for anyone who wants to just like see what it's like, see if it's a good fit without having to pay for it. And
Right.
some issues of the smaller magazine will have ads in it.
Okay. But so people that subscribe to a print version of your magazine, there are no ads.
No ads.
Wow. And it's every month. That one is a monthly, is that right?
That one is monthly. Goblins and Galaxies is at least going to start out as a quarterly magazine.
Okay, sure. Well, yeah.
I don't want to burn out right away.
Go slow. But you've recently hired an editor for CHM, correct?
Yeah, about a year ago.
Okay.
Jolie Tumajin came on. She knows a lot about weird fiction, and it's been great working with her.
Has circulation been growing since its launch?
It has, yeah. It's grown pretty steadily. I've kind of just been waiting for it to see it level off, and it hasn't quite yet.
Wow, that's really interesting. Did you are some people kind of incredulous when you tell them that in the 21st century that people will subscribe to a fiction magazine?
It's an interesting trend that I'm not upset to see it happening, where, you have the last 20 years of like the digital revolution. And I think people are starting to want to go back to holding a book in their hands.
Yeah,
And, a lot of people, I don't want to say too much, but, social media is not what it was. And so you see people kind of valuing how little time they have with a screen,
yeah.
and I think that's kind of just worked well, because I fall into that group where I'd rather hold a book rather than read it digitally. But of course, there's nothing wrong with reading digital. It's good for the environment.
I I'm a I am a lifelong reader, and I will read in any format except Braille, and
Yeah,
that's only because I don't know it. And so I really did like ebooks were a boon to me because I had moved too many times, and I just got tired of continually moving more and more books.
yeah,
But recently I've done some print reading because I wanted to become a better like reviewer, and so I decided to get some print books and highlight them and
yeah,
do live in the physical world. Plus, I wanted books to put on my bookshelf for my TikTok, since that wanted a lot of science fiction books back there. But to me, it definitely has an appeal. I find it more like when you read. I like to read myself to sleep, and
yeah, for sure.
that is a different experience with a book and a lamp by the side of your bed than it is holding a phone.
Yeah,
Um,
certainly.
and I still love reading on my phone. I mean, it's super convenient, and to be able to carry my whole library there
Oh
and
yeah,
hold my phone in one hand. But I don't fault anyone who says I just want to read on paper media, and I commend you for making your magazines available in paper format. Tell us a
thank you.
little bit about the Kickstarter if people want to get involved. It continues through what date?
It continues through. I'm gonna look at my calendar so I don't get it wrong. May 5th,
Okay, May 5th.
so a week
So,
from today.
what tell us a little bit about the tiers and what people can sign up for if they want to support the project.
Yeah, so we have several tiers available. It's kind of similar to the Kickstarter I ran for Cosmic Horror Monthly a couple of years back, where you can join at a digital tier and just get the upcoming digital releases of the 4 issues, plus a bonus issue that we have. And there's also a print tier that's the same thing, but you'll receive the magazines by mail. And then in addition to that, you can get a tier that has those magazines plus some merchandise like a shirt and a mug with the Goblins and Galaxies logos. And for the like serious collectors and maybe people who didn't know about CHM, because I think it's still a little obscure to some. We offer some packages with like the full backlog of Cosmic Horror
Oh,
Monthly.
wow. Okay. Well, that sounds like a deal, especially if you're a collector. Um,
Yeah,
what so to back you, people go to Kickstarter and just pick their tier. Um, why don't you kind of walk us through a little bit if there are some folks that have been hesitant to do a Kickstarter, um, make it sound unintimidating for them.
yeah. Kickstarter is a little bit of a unique, way to support a project. It's one of those things where it's kind of like you create a project and you set that you want to raise so much money to make the project happen, and then people can contribute, and then in exchange for the contribution they'll get rewards like we were just talking about. And then the main difference here is that you only get charged and receive the rewards if the campaign meets the goal, which I'm glad to say that we've already met the goal. So anyone who decides to contribute in the next week, you're guaranteed to receive the magazine. It's not going to fail. Um, So yeah.
And I think I saw an email today that your new the stretch goal that the campaign just hit, that allows you to double your rate to the writers. Which, does that make you a professional? Are you at that level now where you're paying professional rates?
We've been trying to get to 6 cents just
Okay.
across the board, paying that much. I did learn somewhat recently. I mean, this is my fault for not being on top of it. That I think 8 cents is required to be prorate these days,
Okay.
and we'll try to get to that too. But we've been paying 3 cents at CHM for a long time, and I was really hoping to be able to debut Goblins and Galaxies at 6 cents, just because
Yeah.
there's no magazine without the writers,
Right.
and so we're at least going to be there.
Okay, that's great. And for people again who are thinking of writing and submitting and have their eye on the Science Fiction Writers of America, their current membership requirements actually are based on a total amount that you have earned. It's no longer just they no longer, as I read them, they no longer just accept submissions that were in a professional rate magazine. And so that makes it a little bit easier, especially in this day and age, when there are so many different ways to monetize your writing.
Yeah.
Not everything fits in that narrow niche that was kind of so common for so long, where, well, these are the magazines that you're publishing in if you are a professional. So that's very helpful too. So this has been a great interview. Thank you. I thank you for making my first interview painless. I want to say, hey, I'd love to have you on again sometime when you have something to share about how Goblins and Galaxies is going. But thank you, Charles, for joining us, and good luck on the rest of your Kickstarter campaign. I look forward to reading issue 0 when it's ready to go.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, and I'd be honored to come back anytime.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Please share your thoughts about this article by commenting online at thecosmiccodex.com. You can also find source links in the online text. Don't miss an article. Subscribe today to the Cosmic Codex email newsletter at thecosmiccodex.com. Thank you for listening.